A6 suited.
Let me second face.
Ace queen suited.
I'm a 7 to 1.
Queen versus 7 versus 6.
Clear side?
Yeah, side is
We got ace six, ace queen.
Big pot, guys. Big pot. Public window. Lock box.
I'm right here.
Oh, ooh, flush draw. Hit the flush.
And you get the
Flush wins
six
it.
too.
Nice hand. So the Friday night game was pretty good. It's a decent buy-in. That was a freeze out, which I love. I'd been working a lot that week, so it was nice to kind of like just get a little break. So I played pretty sharp, and right away I was aggressive in position. I three bet a lot. I mean, if I was gonna get in, unless if it was lumped in, I raised it just to make sure that the big blind doesn't get in with like 2-7 off, and hit two pair or whatever. So early on, I raised. I had 8-10 of clubs. I was in the cutoff, and I raised. There was one limper. So the button calls me, and everybody else folded. So flop comes out ace, queen, jack, 9. So this is perfect. I flopped a straight, but I can't go crazy because it's not the nut straight. I don't think there was any other players. If there were one, the guy maybe the blind may have big blind may have defended. As we get to later, he liked to defend. There was a big blind that sat like 4 seats away from me that just defended every time, no matter what. So I bet a small amount, maybe a little bit more than a quarter of the pot, and the guy on the button calls me. So the turn comes out. 5 of hearts is still clean. I bet again. Bet a decent amount, a little bit less than a full pot, and I got called again. So the river comes out, the 4 of spades. At this point, I'm thinking, let me just check, see if I can induce a bluff. I mean, I don't have the nuts. I can't go super crazy. So he bet he made a big bet. Maybe I think he bet like 14 or 15,000, which was about a pot-sized bet. And I call and turn over my 8-10 for a straight. He chuckles, and he was just bluffing. He had ace-10. He was drawing for the straight, so he didn't hit. If he hit the 8, we would have chopped. King, I would have lost, but he didn't get there. So that was a pretty good hand for me. So I was playing pretty well, built up a decent stack early, and right before the break, just a couple of hours in, I think that's the latest time that late registration is allowed, but not that it makes a difference. You get a lot of chips. You get like 120K in chips, so it's a deep stack to start with. The blinds go up pretty fast. It's every 20 minutes, but it was good. So I lost a decent pot. I had 2 black kings. I raised pre-flop. There were 2 or 3 callers, so like 2 small cards, 3 small cards flopped. I bet again. One of them stayed in. I had folded to him a couple of times when he just let out bets and where they made no sense. They didn't make any sense to me why he would bet. but I just went away because I didn't have like really big hands. I think I had a top pair a couple of times. The top pair, not a great kicker. It was just one pair, and he looked like he kind of knew what he was doing, but it's hard to say. Anyway, he had stayed, and then the turn was another small card, but now there were three hearts. So I checked. I checked the turn, and on the river, a blank hit. It was like another card. Just nothing to really be scared of other than the three hearts, and he bets a decent amount, and it was the last time before the break. Half the room had already left, and I decide, you know what, I got to see what this guy's playing, and I call, and he turns over immediately. Turns over two. He had two hearts. I think it suited king. He might have had king nine or king eight hearts, and so I lost that pot, and but it was fine. I still had a little bit less than the starting stack and going into the main part of the tournament. So still pretty early on. Might have been level 6 or 7. There was a guy that liked to defend his blind that I mentioned earlier. He defended everything. Like he doesn't care if it's 5-9 off or whatever. So a bunch of guys limped in, and he was the big blind at this point. I think I was in the either the cutoff or the hijack, and I had king 10 off. Actually, I was on the button. So I remember that clearly. So I had king 10 off. I'm on the button. I don't want to raise because he's going to defend anyway. I just want to see, I want to see what happens. So he makes a massive raise, like I think he made it like 20,000 or something. It was like 10x the raise of whatever it was, and everybody folds. It comes to me. He made it 25,000. I forget what the blinds were, but I remember the amount of the bet, and I decide I'm gonna call. So I call, and before the flop comes out, the guy just blind shoves his entire stack. Like he's representing aces. I mean, there's no way. I mean, it is possible he had aces, but this guy is just making a move. So I call, and after he raised blind, I just look over to see at the flop, and the king high flop is king 9-4. He'd already shoved. I say I call, turn over my king 10. He shows his ace jack off, so he missed completely, and the board ran out clean. No ace didn't hit. He just muttered to himself, "Oh, why did the king have to hit?" And he walked away. And that gave me a nice big stack to play with the rest of the night. So soon after, people were getting eliminated, and my table broke up. I went to a new table, and relatively early on, the fourth or fifth hand, I was a big blind. There was a big raise, and then a few players had called, and I look at ace king off. I decided I'm just going to go all in. It's hard to play that out of position, have a lot of chips. So the original raiser goes all in, and everybody else folds. He turns over aces, so I doubled him up. And I was still pretty good. And the very next hand, I had 2 hands later, I was on the button. Ace 5 off, another similar raise from an early position. I hadn't been at the table, so I didn't know how anybody else was playing. So it comes to me, I had ace 5 off. I called to see a flop, and flop came out like 3 medium cards with a 5. It was like 9-5-3. And the original raiser made a big bet, like pot-sized bet. I'm going to see a card. I call the turn. He checked the turn, which made me feel good, thinking, at least he doesn't have aces. And board ran relatively clean. And he turned over ace king on the river. I checked it back twice, and I scooped up a pretty nice pot with ace 5. Again, the very next hand I had 2 red jacks. It was people folded to me, and I raised 2.5x, and everybody folded. So cards are literally holding up every slight edge I had. I was winning every flip. If I was 52% favorite to win, I won. And this was a relatively interesting hand. Pocket sevens are pretty good. Pocket pairs in general were good to me. Usually medium pairs are like a bane of my existence. I had seven of clubs, seven of diamonds. I raised and I got three bet by a semi small stack. And another player had called, and I just jammed. I four bet all in to isolate, and the guy calls. He calls me. He already went all in, so he turns over king queen. I turn over my pocket sevens. Flop came out ace queen jack. Great flop for him, but the turn was a seven. Give me a set of sevens, and it held up, and so I went on like that the rest of the night, and every time somebody went all in, a small medium stack, 10 big blinds or less, jack queen went all in. I had ace queen, I call ace right in the window. So we got to the final table. I think top 9 or top 7 were getting paid. I think it was top 9. So we decided to, give a little bit of money to everyone that made the final table. So we took a little bit off the top. We got paid, and then we got to 5 players left. I'm still doing pretty well. I was by far the biggest stack leader. I had like 40% of the chips in play. I had like 2.6 million, and some guy, the closest to me, had like 1.9. One guy had barely a million. The other two had like about 500,000 each. And so they wanted to discuss, chop was discussed, and it wasn't a great enough, fair enough deal for me. So I said, let's play it out. I mean, and we did. And right away, one of the small stacks goes all in. I was on the small blind, pocket kings. He turns over ace jack, and right away I flop quad kings. Another hand, we got down to the 3 players, the 3 bigger stacks, and leaning on the small stacks, and getting folds or winning pots. Even c bets. Just generally playing really well. If I have trash hand, I was just throwing it away anyway. So we got to a point where the second guy with second place decided to make a move on me, and after I had raised with ace jack or ace queen, I forget what it was, 3 small cards came out. I think 8-6-3. He checked. I bet. He called on the turn, and then the turn was another small medium card. I think it paired to 6s. He checks to me, I check. So on the river, he makes a move, like he bets like a lot. I mean, a decent, like 300,000-400,000 into the pot, which is like a little bit less than pot size bet. And the river was an 8, so like 2 8s, 2 6s, and a 3. I called him with ace high, and he said good call, and he had just made a move like with king 9, and that was it. So he ended up getting eliminated. So we ended up heads up. And heads up didn't last too long. At this point, the blinds were really, really high because there's a big blind ante, which is like double big blind. So on the last level where we played at, was small blind was paying 40,000, and the big blind was paying 160,000 because 80,000 and 80,000 big blind ante, and it lasted about 5 hands. So we played heads up. Only 4 or 5 hands. I was, still leaning on him. So he played this hand, the very last hand. He limps in, and I look at pocket pairs that had 7 of clubs, 7 of diamonds. I put them all in. I say all in. I mean, he like hums and haws. He's like tanking. He's like Hollywood. I mean, especially when he, considering he had ace king of clubs. So eventually, after a long speech about how he thinks I have pocket queens, he decides, oh, it's going to end right here. And he calls with ace king of clubs, which is ridiculous because that's like a snap. So I turn over my sevens, and he gets excited because the ace hits the flop. But second, until he realized that I also flopped a 7 for my set, and the turn was a queen. It meant he's still alive. With queen or an ace, he has a bigger boat. He wins, but he doesn't. And Jack comes out at the end, and I was able to get a nice deserved win, and it was a fun night.